Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're diving into a sector that's really brimming with opportunity. It's the world of water.
Definitely essential.
And no, not just like, the refreshing kind. We're talking the kind that's poised to redefine the future of our planet. We're talking investments in clean water, efficient water management.
Yeah, it's a hot topic, that's for sure.
Absolutely. And you, my friend, you're one of those savvy investors because you sent over some seriously impressive reports on three Indian companies making waves in the water industry. Ion Exchange, Wellspun Corp Ltd, and VA Tech Wabag. We're talking playing it safe, riding the wave of growth, betting on sustainability all in one episode. So let's just dive into their financials and see what kind of treasures we can uncover.
Sounds good to me.
All right. First up, we've got Ion Exchange. And when I say strong track record, I mean been knocking it out of the park strong.
Okay, strong words. Lay it on me.
Think consistent revenue growth, healthy profits year after year.
Yeah, their financials definitely caught my eye too. It wasn't just a little growth spurt here. Their revenue has surged at an average of 12% annually over the past 5 years. That's consistently outpacing the industry average.
Wow, 12%. They're messing around. And get this, it's not just a one-trick pony show either. What's interesting is that they've got their fingers in a lot of different pies. Engineering, chemicals, even consumer products. They're really diversifying their portfolio here, not putting all their eggs in one basket.
For sure. A smart move, mitigating risk, which is always a good thing. And on top of that, they're really pouring resources into R&D. That's always a good sign.
Yeah, they're not just keeping up with the trends, they're setting them. And their annual report actually highlights strong management as a key to their success. But let's get down to brass tacks here. What makes their management team stand out? What are they doing differently?
Well, one word. ESG, environmental, social, and governance factors, they're really weaving that into everything they do. Not just talking the talk, but walking the walk. And that's something investors are really starting to prioritize.
Absolutely. Okay, so they're financially sound, they're innovating, they're committed to sustainability. This sounds almost too good to be true. Is there something we're missing?
Well, it's not all smooth sailing. There is a bit of a legal situation brewing with one of their subsidiaries, Ion Exchange EnviroFarms Limited.
Interesting. Is that like a red flag, yellow flag, or more of a keep an eye on it kind of thing?
I'd say it's too early to tell definitively, but, transparency is key. Investors should definitely keep it on their radar.
Noted. Okay, let's move on to our next contender then. We've got Wellspun Corp Ltd. Now, their steel pipe division, it took a bit of a hit last quarter, a 23% revenue dip.
Yeah, it's still always a bit of a roller coaster, isn't it? It's a cyclical industry, very vulnerable to global demand and those fluctuating commodity prices.
It's like trying to surf on a wave that keeps changing direction.
Exactly. But, and here's where it gets interesting, despite that dip, they actually managed to increase their profit by 50% compared to last year. Talk about weathering the storm.
Whoa, 50%. Okay, color me impressed. How'd they pull that off?
Well, a combination of things. They've got some really savvy cost management strategies in place, and they're laser focused on operational efficiency. To put it into perspective, their EBITDA margin, which basically measures profitability, it actually expanded despite the lower revenue.
Okay, for those of us who need a quick refresher, what does an expanding EBITDA margin during a revenue dip actually tell us?
It tells us that even though they're selling less, they're making more profit on what they do sell. It really highlights their ability to adapt and stay profitable even when the market's throwing punches.
That's what I call a savvy business move. But Wellspun, they're not just about steel pipes. They're also in the business of plastic products and building materials, another smart diversification move.
Absolutely. And speaking of smart moves, their recent acquisition of WeTech Plastics, very interesting. It's a strategic play to capitalize on that growing demand for plastic pipes, especially for water infrastructure projects.
So they're not just riding the current wave, they're already paddling towards the next one.
Precisely. And they're doing it with a pretty healthy balance sheet, too. Their debt-to-equity ratio is very low, which indicates they're not overly reliant on borrowing to fuel their growth.
Low debt, high profits, strategic acquisitions. These guys are like the chess masters of the water industry. All right, ready to move on to our final contender.
Let's do it. Let's talk about VA Tech Wabag. Now, this company, they're playing on a whole other level. We're talking global scale here.
And I'm not talking just dipping their toes in the water. This is a full-blown cannonball. They're operating in over 25 countries, a dominant force in the water treatment arena.
What's striking about them is their commitment to tackling some of those really big pressing water challenges head on, things like desalination, wastewater treatment. They're not shying away from the tough stuff.
So they're not just thinking profits, they're thinking about the future of the planet.
Exactly. And their work on that Namami Gange project, a massive initiative to clean up the Ganges River in India, it speaks volumes about their commitment to sustainability.
Absolutely. It's like they're saying, we're here to make a difference. Oh, and by the way, we're incredibly profitable while we're at it. And speaking of which, their annual report proudly declares they've been net cash positive for 4 years running. Now, for those who might not be familiar with that term, what does that essentially mean?
It means more cash coming in than going out of very healthy financial position. They're not just surviving, they're thriving.
And their credit rating has actually improved recently, too, which shows that lenders have a lot of confidence in their financial stability.
Absolutely. It's like getting a gold star from the financial world.
Huge. But even with all this success, their Q1 FY25 report did reveal a slight dip in profit margins, even though their revenue increased. Now, I'm no financial whiz, but that seems a bit counterintuitive.
It does, doesn't it? It's one of those things where you have to dig a little deeper. A single quarter's results don't always tell the whole story. Trends over time are really important. We need to look at the why.
So it's like reading between the lines of a financial statement. What's the story these numbers are whispering?
Well, if we go back to their Q1 report, one thing that jumps out is that their operating expenses have been increasing.
Ah, so maybe rising costs are cutting into their margins a bit. They're making more money, but it's also costing them more to do so.
Precisely.
It highlights the importance of looking beyond just the surface level, doesn't it?
100%.
Because sometimes a rising tide doesn't lift all boats. It's about understanding those currents beneath the surface.
Well said.
So we've got 3 very different companies, each with their own unique approach to riding this wave of opportunity in the water industry.
Yeah.
What really stood out to you from these reports? What really grabbed your attention?
Oh, that's a tough one. There's a lot to unpack there.
There is.
Let me think. Well, one thing that really struck me was Ion Exchange's commitment to corporate governance.
Oh, yeah, interesting.
It's one thing to talk about ESG, but they're really putting their money where their mouth is. And it's not just about ethics, it makes good business sense. Investors are really starting to gravitate towards companies that align with their values, and they seem to be leading the charge in that area.
It's like they're saying, look, we can be profitable and responsible. And speaking of profits, their dividend policy also caught my eye. They've been consistently paying dividends, which tells me they're not just hoarding cash, they're sharing the wealth with their investors.
It's a good sign. Shows they're confident in their ability to generate consistent cash flow and reward their shareholders.
Now, that's a company that knows how to treat its investors. But let's move on to Wellspun Corp. Ltd. Their story is one of pure resilience. I mean, talk about a company that knows how to ride a choppy market. They faced that revenue slump head-on, but still managed to keep their profits afloat.
Yeah, it's like they looked at that market downturn and said, challenge accepted. Tightening their belts, coming out stronger on the other side. That ability to maintain profitability even with reduced revenue, it really speaks to their operational efficiency.
Totally. They saw that wave coming and turned it into an opportunity. And let's not forget about their strategic diversification. Venturing into plastic products, building materials, it shows they're not afraid to explore new avenues for growth.
Like having a backup surfboard, just in case the waves die down in one area.
Exactly. Always be prepared. Now, VA-Tech Wabag, these guys are on a mission, and I'm not just talking about financial gain. Their commitment to global water solutions is seriously impressive.
They're not just riding the wave, they're like changing the tide. Desalination, wastewater treatment, these are game changers for a thirsty planet.
And their work on the Namami Gange project talk about putting your money where your mouth is.
Absolutely. Cleaning up the Ganges, one of the most polluted rivers in the world. That's not just corporate social responsibility, that's true leadership.
Right. They're like the superheroes of clean water. But even superheroes face challenges, right? What are some of the potential risks or bumps in the road that these companies might encounter?
You're right. Even the most promising companies face challenges. Let's start with Ion Exchange. Their diversified portfolio, while a strength, also exposes them to a wider range of risks.
It's like they're juggling multiple surfboards, which is impressive, but also increases the chance of dropping one.
Exactly. A downturn in any one of their operating segments, whether it's engineering, chemicals, consumer products, could impact their overall performance. And of course, we can't ignore that legal issue with their subsidiary.
Right, that keep an eye on it situation.
It just serves as a reminder that even companies with stellar financials, good governance, they can still hit unexpected snags.
Makes sense. Okay, so what about Wellspun Court Ltd. then? What's on their radar?
Well, as we touched on earlier, the steel industry, it's inherently cyclical. Their steel pipe division is always going to be vulnerable to those market swings.
So it's a bit of a roller coaster ride for investors in that segment.
In a way, yes. And while Wellspun has shown they can navigate those ups and downs, it's important to be aware of that inherent volatility.
Duly noted. Okay, last but not least, VA Tech Wabag. What challenges do they face? They seem to be firing on all cylinders.
They are, but their reliance on these large-scale projects, particularly those from government clients, does come with its own set of risks.
So it's like they're building these massive water treatment plants, which is amazing, but if a project gets delayed or even canceled.
Exactly, it could have a significant impact on their revenue stream. These projects often involve lengthy bidding processes, regulatory approvals, complex logistics, all of which can introduce uncertainty.
So investors need to be aware that even with the best intentions, a solid track record, external factors can still create delays and impact a company's bottom line.
Precisely, and let's not forget those geopolitical factors at play. Operating in over 25 countries, that exposes them to a whole other level of complexity.
Right. Different countries, different rules, different currencies, different political climates. That's a lot to keep track of.
Absolutely. It's a reminder that international operations, while offering immense growth potential, also come with a unique set of risks.
It's like navigating a jungle gym of global regulations and market forces. So we've talked about the good, the great, and the potentially challenging. Where does this leave us in our quest to understand these companies and their potential as investments?
I think it's important to remember that every investment involves a degree of risk. There are no guarantees.
That's the golden rule of investing, right?
Exactly. But what we can do is arm ourselves with knowledge, analyze the financials, understand the company's strategies, and those broader market dynamics.
Which is exactly what we're doing here.
Right. We need to weigh the potential rewards against the inherent risks.
So it's a balancing act.
In a nutshell, yes. But knowledge is power. And understanding these companies, their strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, that's how we make informed investment decisions.
It's like we're building a toolkit for investment success, one company analysis at a time. But before we wrap up, I have to ask, what are your final thoughts on these three companies? If you had to pick one that particularly excites you, which one would it be?
Oh, that's a tough one. It's like choosing between a stable workhorse, a nimble surfer, and a global changemaker. Each company brings something unique to the table.
They're like the Avengers of the water industry, each with their own superpowers. But if you had to assemble your dream team, who'd be your captain?
Well, if I had to choose just one, I'd have to go with VA Tech Wabag.
Really? Why is that?
Their global reach, their commitment to tackling the world's most pressing water challenges, their innovative solutions, and their strong financial performance. They're a company with a conscience, a vision for the future, and the track record to back it up.
They're not just riding the wave, they're creating it.
Exactly.
It's not just about the numbers, is it? It's about making a real difference.
Absolutely, 100%.
So we've got Ion Exchange, the steady and reliable one, always sharing the wealth. Then there's Wellspun Corp, riding those market waves with style and a backup plan. And finally, VA Tech Wabag, the global game changer, tackling those massive water challenges head on.
It's like they've each got their own unique superpower.
They do. But remember, folks, every investment comes with its own risks. There's no such thing as a sure thing.
Definitely not. That's why we do all this research, right? Due diligence, understanding the companies, the financials, the market, it's all part of the puzzle.
Exactly. It's like we're building a toolkit for investment success, one company at a time. But before we wrap things up, I want to go back to something you said earlier. You mentioned VA Tech Wabag's impressive work on the Namami Gange project. Cleaning up the Ganges, that's a huge undertaking. What's the significance of a project like that, not just for the company, but for, the planet?
Oh, it's massive. It's not just about cleaning up a river, it's about restoring an ecosystem that millions, literally millions of people rely on. It's about preserving a vital resource for future generations.
Yeah.
And for Viatec Wabag, it's a powerful testament to their capabilities, their commitment to sustainability. It's the kind of project that can really put a company on the map as a leader in the field.
Like they're showing the world what's possible.
Exactly. It's about action, not just words. And I think that's something that resonates with investors, especially these days.
Absolutely. People want to invest in companies that align with their values, that are making a positive impact on the world.
100%. And that's what makes the sector so exciting. It's not just about profits. It's about making a difference. It's about investing in solutions to some of the most pressing challenges facing humanity.
It's about investing in our future.
Exactly.
And on that note, I think it's time for us to surface from this deep dive. We've explored the financials, the opportunities, the risks, but most importantly, we've explored the potential of this industry to create a more sustainable future.
We've only just scratched the surface here. There's so much more to explore in the world of water.
There is. But hey, that's what deep dives are all about, right? Giving you that initial push, that spark of curiosity to go out and do your own research. So to all our listeners out there, keep exploring, keep asking those tough questions, and keep seeking those investments that not only make financial sense, but also align with your values and your vision for the future.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Thanks for joining us on another Deep Docs. Until next time, happy investing.